So at an Earth Day thing at the National Mall, activists made an unearthly mess. I guess if your heart's in the right place, the trash can go anywhere. No wonder this guy was crying.
People start pollution. People can stop it.
You can keep crying, pal, because it's never about the Earth, but ego and retribution. Take Bill Nye, the denial guy, bragging on Twitter about flying with President Obama today. See, for him, it's all about status, the attention bestowed for parroting the right platitudes. It's why he can get away with blaming the Jews for fleeing Europe.
Netanyahu is asking European Jews to come to Israel and
come home to Israel. That's what he said, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he is the.
But the people never been there. They grew up in whatever, in Germany or France.
It's a shame that they should have to move.
Well, they probably won't either, because it's not their home. What do you do about it? I think you get to know your neighbors. It's going to take. What does it take? A century, something like that.
Ah, science. I suppose if they were polar bears, he'd feel differently. The scarier belief, however, is that climate change poses a greater threat than terror. It's fine from loony Luddites, but the president? Yikes.
Today, there's no greater threat to our planet than climate change. The Pentagon says that climate change poses immediate risks to our national security. Climate change can no longer be denied or ignored.
I call this the straw-pocalypse, a mix of straw man and Armageddon. Sure, the Earth's end trumps everything, but with that absurd comparison, then we should devote nothing to present danger and only fight future figments of imagination. It's nuts. But Republicans must do better. If you say the science isn't settled, then you cannot dismiss warming out of hand. You need to be persuasive even when they mock you. And they will mock you, as Earth Day is Christmas for Earth's Avengers. For most climate change activists, it's less about carbon and more about consumers and consumerism and trashing a system that saved countless lives. For the Green Movement believes that at the root of every evil is a beating human heart. Their bile toward human enterprise is the howl of the non-productive, nurtured on bitter slogans. I'm here to help, they tell the Earth. If the Earth could talk, she'd say, please get lost. So, Eric, Bill Nye, I have a theory. I think he's making up for lost time. That now he's finally getting attention. Isn't this what it's about?
But the wrong it probably is. He's probably that narcissistic that he needs attention. I literally saw that tweet and I go, he's spoofing himself, right?
Yeah.
His tweet was, I'm going to fly to D.C. and get a ride on Air Force One on Earth Day. You know the carbon footprint of what he's about to do? Okay, so let's talk about the science a little bit. Energy production is at a 30-year high in America. Air and water are at the cleanest levels in 45 years. Food production is 40% higher than it was 65 years ago at its all-time high, and life expectancies are at their high. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure that all these, Armageddon theories, apocalypse that are coming, that President Obama and Bill Nye and the same types of people that were doing it 40 or 50 years ago, they were wrong then. They're going to be wrong again now.
Yeah, it's true. It's like I want to play sound on tape. From President Obama on Earth Day, talking about how we don't have time.
Folks don't have time. We don't have time. You do not have time to deny the effects of climate change. The next generation, they're way ahead of us in understanding how important this is. Let's make sure we don't disappoint them. Let's stand up and do what's right before it's too late.
So, Juan, this isn't a new message. The American Enterprise Institute has 18 great predictions, including people saying, like a Harvard biologist saying, the estimate that civilization will end within 15 to 30 years. That's from 1970. So doesn't that kind of set off your skeptical mind when you hear we don't have time?
Of course, but I think you have to understand it's a political message that's being delivered by President Obama. He wants to get people excited, energized. I think it's only half of Americans who agree that there is a critical issue with global warming. The other half are not convinced. Some say it's man-made, some say it's not, some say we're not sure, not proven. So there's a lot of skepticism out there. There's not any shortage of it. Mm-hmm. But I would say this in response to my friend Eric Bolling. Back in the 70s and 80s, if people hadn't taken steps to clean up the air over Los Angeles and the rivers in this country, including the river right out here in New York where I grew up, we wouldn't have these good numbers that you're talking about.
Best, cleanest water and air, the food production.
Yeah, because guess what? People did something. They didn't pretend nothing was going on.
But that's not the case here. Now we're talking about, carbon emissions. You're talking about putting onerous regulation on automakers. You're talking about taking further steps.
Yes.
Our planet seems to be doing quite nice right
Yeah, in
now.
other words, if things are getting worse, if in the last, since 2000, since 2000 you've had the 15 warmest years on recorded history, then you say things are getting wrong, things are getting bad.
Juan, that statement is up for debate.
It's up for debate.
No,
but, fine. Let's debate it.
Flatlining.
It's flatlining. But I'm just saying, basically then, it's warmer, even if it's flatlining. What you see is getting warmer, and let's debate it, but let's not ignore it.
There's also data that shows before humans were emitting as much carbon dioxide that they are now, that we had warmer periods of time 100 years ago, 200 years ago. And the bottom line is that the free market system is actually why we've been able to clean up the environment through innovation, through ideas, and through people developing these new products to help clean up the environment. I agree with you that it's necessary to keep the environment clean, but we can't do it through these eco-fascists who want to attack capitalism, who have turned the environmental movement into a socialist movement. You go out and you go to the marches that they have and you see the things that they're talking about tearing down capitalism. But when you look all over the world, the systems of government where they don't have a free market system, they have the dirtiest environments. Whereas you look here, we have the cleanest environment.
Now, I hadn't heard that before, eco-fascist. Well, so your argument is not with the idea of doing something. You just don't like the fact that most of these people are liberals.
No, look, the environmentalists have created a lot of the environmental problems that we have in this country, including the wildfires out west, the California drought that have happened now. Those are created by environmentalist big government policies and them taking the free market out of that system.
Can I jump in?
It's a little too much to explain right now, but I would be happy to give you more information.
I know. Before we destroy Juan's arguments, I want to get Kimberly in here. Yeah. How did you celebrate Earth Day? I noticed you're wearing black.
Yes, I'm wearing black, and I'm just looking for a few good private planes to get on. What can I tell you? Much like the president, right, with the 9,000 gallons of fuel that it's going to take to go to the Everglades. I mean, the hypocrisy, it's just replete. The cup spilleth over in D.C. But yet they keep wanting to be hysterical about it because it's political pandering. It feeds their hungry little groups. They're little like, oh, these are the people that are going to put us in. These are the people that are going to support whatever foundation Obama does when he gets out. And that's what they're doing. And it's disingenuous, and it doesn't make sense when you look at the facts. That's why I find it abhorrent.
Juan, can I address what my problem with this and why it's a tough debate? It's because how do you solve or address a problem when they keep exaggerating the end result, that what could happen? What drove me, like, no one's really talked about when President Obama said that his child got asthma, and he blamed it on climate change. That's not science. If that's what you would call a distortion. How can you have a reasoned debate with people who are constantly changing the panic? They're moving the panic to a greater wave of hysteria.
Well, I don't know that that's true, because in fact there are more people now with asthma and more children suffering from asthma than we've ever seen.
But he also smoked. Why isn't it more plausible that it's from secondhand smoke?
It definitely could be. I don't know. I don't know that he can prove it. I think that's your point, right? He can't prove it. But my point to you is we do have a larger number of young people who are suffering from asthma today than ever.
Well, look, go ahead. I mean, I think that you have to look at this idea that it goes to this overall picture. If you're a denier or you have skepticism about a certain topic, you automatically don't count and your opinion doesn't count. And we can't have a debate. There's plenty of scientists, actually, including the co-founder of Greenpeace, the co-founder of the Weather Channel, who don't believe global warming is a valid argument in the first place either. But we're not allowed to listen to them. They're not allowed to have a discussion in this debate. President Obama is inviting them to stand with him in the Everglades. They're inviting Bill Nye, who, by the way, is worshipped in public schools across the country by our science teachers. So, they automatically shut down debate and call you a denier when you bring up different facts that are opposed to the ones that they say are settled.
Well, what you can't deny is that the Earth Day co-founder, Ira Einhorn, killed and composted his girlfriend in 1977.
This is a horror movie.
Yeah, that's true. That is a new definition of flower power. The poor woman, poor woman, his name was Helen Maddox. They remember Ira Einhorn and Earth Day, but they don't remember her name. I want to bring up Eric. What happens when they focus on the environment and put it ahead of things like terror? This is the President of the United States on MSNBC.
I think the Islamic world is going through a process where they have to isolate and push out
the kind of extremism that we've seen expressed by ISIL. And that's a generational project. But I remind people that there actually is probably less war and less violence around the world today than there might have been 30, 40 years ago.
Isn't it really about shifting priorities?
Yeah. And again, he said on numerous occasions that the biggest threat to national security is the climate, is the air, is the water. I mean, based in what? Founded in what? And again, he's also the guy who said JV's the ISIS the JV team. Al Qaeda's on its heels. They're on the run. Has the guy been accurate about anything yet?
No, because it's opposite day for him. Remember, we discovered that it's opposite day.
You know, let me just say, the Pentagon said that.
What? Said what?
That, in fact, global warming is a threat to our national security. It's a threat to not only our health, our food supply. It's a threat to cities. It's a threat to tourism.
Based in what, Juan? I just showed you we have 40% higher food production per capita than we did 60 years ago.
Let me just tell you, if you have coastal areas being flooded...
You don't.
I'm saying if. You don't hear the IF? If.
All right, one quick example. California. There's a drought going on.
Right.
Right? Why?
We can't prove.
Why?
We don't know
yes,
why.
Yes, you do, Juan.
Oh, why?
California gets 71 million yard acres of water runoff a year. They use 42 million. They have a 30 million surplus of water runoff. But they divert it, and it goes into the Pacific Ocean. Why? Because they want to save some fish and wildlife in the Delta region. That's exactly why.
Let me tell you
that's exactly why they have a...
And you think that's just bananas? Why would you want to save any wildlife?
Because at the risk of killing human beings in the meantime, or jobs.
Here's a secret.
Okay.
If you go to the Grand Canyon in Arizona, you can find seashell fossils at the Grand Canyon. Why is that? Because it used to be under an ocean. So yes, the climate changes. It's been changing for billions of years. This whole idea that we're going to have these oceans rising, we don't have any time, is all built on this idea of implementing more government and making people give up some of their freedoms in order to implement this plan. But to President Obama's comment about saying that the world is a safer place now, it's not as violent, I take huge issue with that. Just yesterday on Greta's show, she showed 90,000 Iraqis fleeing ISIS. You have 200,000 plus people killed in Syria in the past 5 years. Mexico, 50,000 people killed in the drug war there since 2006. I mean, for him to say that is really not taking into consideration the loss of human life during his tenure, quite frankly.
For you to say that's not taking into consideration the facts. I mean, it's been proven over and over again. We have less war, less people dying from armed conflict in the world today than we've had, I think, it's ever. So, you go back and look at things like Civil War, World War II, Vietnam. There are a lot of people dying in state-sponsored armed conflict. We don't have that today, and that's why he's able to say that accurately.
But there's atrocities everywhere. He won't. I mean, this is a guy that won't even call what happened to the Armenians genocide, right?
That's a political issue, and you know that. I mean, that's why. I mean, other presidents haven't said, and that's why the Armenians to this day run ads saying, "Don't forget what happened to us."
I agree. And I would say about the drought in California, you smelt it, you dealt it.
Absolutely.
You knew that was coming.